Welcome to my Sacred Revenge channel, where betrayal isn't just exposed, it's answered.
The crisp white envelope, adorned with the subtle blue emblem of Crestwood Bank, lay nestled within a haphazard pile of mail. I almost dismissed it. Another piece of unsolicited correspondence, destined for the recycling bin alongside the utility. Statements and discount flyers. My initial glance barely registered its presence. I was preoccupied, sifting through the mundane ephemera of daily life, a lukewarm mug of herbal tea clutched in my hand. It was only after I drained the last drop of my second cup, the quiet morning stretching before me, that my gaze lingered on the unfamiliar logo. A faint flutter, an unsettling prickle of unease, stirred in the pit of my stomach. Before I begin telling you my story, let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and if you'd like to share your own story, feel free to write. To us, Crestwood Bank, the name meant nothing to me. I had no dealings with them, no accounts, no loans. Yet a peculiar sense of foreboding, coupled with an undeniable surge of curiosity, compelled me to tear open the seal. The first few lines I read sent a cold jolt through me, stealing the air from my lungs. My stomach lurched, a sickening freefall. Dear Ms. Albright, the letter began, "This is a reminder of your overdue mortgage payment." I froze, the words blurring before my eyes. The letter, stark and unyielding, claimed I was indebted by more than $7,000. The second installment on a colossal loan of $950,000. It went on to state, with chilling precision, that if the account wasn't brought to current status within 2 weeks, foreclosure proceedings would commence. I blinked, rereading the damning lines, then again searching for some logical explanation. Simply didn't make sense. I was a septuagenarian, a retired librarian who had spent decades immersed in the quiet solace of books. My beloved husband, Thomas, had passed away over a decade prior, leaving me to navigate the world alone, but not adrift. The modest stone cottage on Elderberry Lane, the home Thomas and I had shared for 40 joyful years, had been paid off in full long ago, a testament to our careful planning and diligent saving. Why would I, a woman who prided herself on living a life free of debt and unnecessary complications, suddenly be on the hook for nearly $1 million? My hand, trembling almost imperceptibly, reached for the telephone. I dialed the number. Printed on the letter, the rhythmic clicks echoing the frantic beat of my heart. After an eternity of holding, a young, disembodied voice finally answered. "Crestwood Bank, how may I assist you?" "This is Margaret Albright," I managed, my voice a thin, reedy whisper. "I received a mortgage statement this morning. There's been a terrible mistake. I've never taken out a loan from your bank." "Please hold for a moment, Ms. Albright," the voice replied, its tone polite but distant. As I was placed on hold, my gaze drifted to the kitchen window, sweeping past the thriving rose garden Thomas had tended with such meticulous care. Everything outside appeared normal, quiet, peaceful, bathed in the gentle morning light. But inside me, something profound had shattered. When the voice returned, it confirmed my darkest suspicion. "According to our records, Ms. Albright, you took out a 30-year mortgage in March to purchase property at 118 Lakeside Circle, valued at $950,000. We have your signed agreement, copy of your passport, your social security number, and your tax forms on file." I felt like I was drowning, suffocating beneath the weight of an invisible force. Someone, a faceless entity, had used my name, my most personal documents, my very identity to orchestrate this monumental fraud. I had no idea who, but a cold, steely resolve began to harden within me. I was going to find out. The moment I hung up, the phone shrilled again, startling me. The screen displayed Victoria, my daughter. For a fleeting second, I considered letting it ring, letting the silence swallow the sudden, overwhelming chaos in my mind. But then a desperate need for something familiar, something grounding, surged through me. Maybe, just maybe, her voice would offer a moment of reprieve. "Mom, it's Chloe's birthday today," Victoria began, her voice brisk, skipping any pretense of a greeting. Her usual hurried cadence grated on my frayed nerves. "You didn't forget, did you? We're meeting at the Gilded Willow at 3. And please, for the love of all that is good, don't wear that faded green cardigan. You know the one? A sophisticated restaurant, not your gardening shed." Chloe, my granddaughter, was turning 12. No, I hadn't forgotten. A small, intricately designed silver bracelet, adorned with a delicate star charm, lay already wrapped and ribboned on my dresser, meaningful. Subtle gift I hoped she would cherish. "I remember," I managed, striving to keep my tone even, devoid of the turmoil churning within me. "But Victoria, I received something this morning. A letter from a bank about a mortgage I never signed." "Not again, Mom," she sighed, a dismissive wave in her voice. "If it's another credit card advertisement, just toss it. You don't have to scrutinize every piece of junk mail that comes your way. It's not junk, Victoria. This is serious. Someone took out a loan in my name, a mortgage for almost $1 million. A beat of silence stretched, then a sharp, incredulous laugh pierced the line. "Mom, come on. Who on earth would give that kind of loan to a retiree? You must have misunderstood." "I didn't misunderstand. I spoke to the bank. They have all my personal information, my signature. They believe I bought a house by the lake." Another silence, heavier this time. Then Victoria's voice shifted, becoming too calm, too unnaturally careful. "Mom, are you feeling all right today? Did you take your blood pressure medication?" "Talk to me as if I'm losing my mind," I said firmly, the tremor in my voice replaced by a sudden surge of indignation. "I know what I read. I know what I heard. This is identity theft, and I'm going to the police." "The police." Victoria's voice climbed, genuinely alarmed now. "Oh my God, Mom, please don't make a scene. I'll stop by after work. Just don't do anything until I get there, okay?" I agreed, the words leaving my lips despite the growing suspicion in my heart. Something in her reaction, a subtle tremor in her carefully modulated voice, struck a dissonant chord deep within me. She wasn't surprised. She was nervous. And that, more than any letter or bank statement, spoke volumes by the time I arrived. At the Gilded Willow that afternoon, my mind was a maelstrom of unanswered questions, swirling and colliding. The restaurant was all sleek glass and polished chrome. It's the kind of establishment where the portions were meticulously artistic and the prices were astronomical. My son Arthur was already seated with his wife Lillian and their 2 perpetually distracted teenagers. Arthur barely acknowledged my arrival. "Mother," he said, his eyes narrowing slightly, a familiar, scrutinizing gaze. "Your hair is sticking up again on the left side." "Nice to see you too, Arthur," I replied, a strange smile plastered to my face as I instinctively smoothed my hair. Lillian offered a polite, almost imperceptible nod, her attention quickly returning to her phone. The teenagers, immersed in their digital worlds, mumbled a distracted hello, their eyes glued to their screens. I sank into the empty seat, a familiar wave of disappointment washing over me. Not for the first time, I wondered how I had raised such emotionally distant individuals. "Where's Victoria?" I asked, attempting to inject a semblance of normalcy into this strained atmosphere. "Running late," said, glancing at his watch. "Work thing. Something about the Hawthorne family situation?" Victoria worked in Child Protective Services, a profession she often spoke of with passionate dedication, emphasizing her role in rescuing children from unstable environments. Sometimes I wondered if she secretly viewed her own childhood as one of those cases, despite the quiet stability Thomas and I had always provided. Half an hour later, Victoria swept in, flawless, impeccably dressed, and precisely on cue. Her husband, Michael, trailed behind her, a perpetually amiable shadow. Chloe, the birthday girl, floated in wearing a dress that looked as though it had stepped directly from the pages of a high-fashion catalog. "Grandma, you came, Chloe," said, her tone more surprised than genuinely pleased. "I wouldn't miss it, sweetheart," I replied, extending the small gift box. She took it without a flicker of excitement, her fingers barely closing around it. "Thanks," she said flatly, already turning to show her cousin Madeline something on her phone. I watched, a quiet ache in my chest as my thoughtfully chosen gift was placed on the table, unceremoniously discarded without a second glance. "Mom." Victoria leaned in, her voice a low whisper, an undercurrent of urgency beneath her carefully constructed composure. "What exactly did that letter say?" "Didn't believe me earlier?" I whispered back, my gaze steady, unwavering. "But it's real. A loan for a house I didn't buy. And the address listed. It's a new build in Lakeside Circle." Victoria stiffened, a flicker of something akin to panic crossing her face, but she quickly regained her composure. "Mom, salad or soup?" she asked aloud, her tone artificially bright, her smile a brittle facade. The remainder of lunch passed in a polite, suffocating tension. Every now and then, I caught Victoria and Arthur exchanging quick, furtive glances that conveyed far more than their carefully chosen words. When I returned home, the silence of my cottage felt heavy, charged with unspoken truths. I made my way to my small desk, the antiquated computer humming softly as it booted up. I wasn't a technological wizard, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I could manage a simple online search. With a hesitant finger, I typed the address from the letter, 118 Lakeside Circle, Crestwood. Up popped a series of glossy professional photographs. A sprawling, modern home with floor-to-ceiling windows, intricate stone accents, and a private dock stretching invitingly into the shimmering expanse of the lake. It was breathtakingly beautiful, a masterpiece of contemporary architecture. It had been purchased in March, the very same month someone had so callously forged my name. That evening, sleep refused to come. I sat by the window, the glow from my computer screen still illuminating the image of that house. Its pristine white siding, flaming windows reflecting the lake's serene surface, the house someone had bought, brazenly, in my name. And then a jarring memory surfaced. Victoria's brand new luxury SUV parked in my driveway just hours earlier. She hadn't mentioned trading in her old car. She certainly hadn't mentioned buying a new house, but it all clicked now with a sickening thud. Victoria had always been relentlessly ambitious, forever striving for something grander, something beyond her reach. She knew the system intimately. She worked within its intricate web. She had access to sensitive information, access to my documents, absuaso, and she had assumed I would be too slow, too bewildered by the complexities of the modern world to ever uncover her deception. She was wrong. Terribly, utterly wrong. The next morning, armed with a renewed sense of purpose, I retrieved my old city directory. My fingers traced the names, searching for the one I needed. Diana Whitmore, legal specialist. Her card, tucked away in an old Rolodex, bore a simple yet powerful motto: protecting your rights when others try to take them. I dialed her number, half expecting to be met with a dismissive receptionist or relegated to a weeks-long waiting list. Instead, the friendly voice on the other end scheduled me for that very afternoon. Diana's office was nestled within a modest, unassuming brick building in downtown Crestwood. Inside, it felt less like a sterile law firm and more like a welcoming home. Lush green plants adorned every windowsill, and soft sunlight streamed through sheer curtains, bathing the room in a warm, inviting glow. Diana herself rose when I entered. She was in her late 60s, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She possessed a quiet, steady presence, a calming aura that instantly made you feel you weren't facing this daunting challenge alone. "Miss Albright," she said, her handshake firm and reassuring. "Please have a seat. Tell me everything." And so I did. From the chilling discovery of the letter to the unsettling phone call with the bank, from the strained birthday lunch to Victoria's unnervingly calm demeanor. I recounted every detail: the mysterious house, the clearly forged signature, and the sudden appearance of Victoria's new luxury vehicle. When I finished, Diana tapped her pen lightly on the desk, the soft clicks punctuating the heavy silence. What you've described, Ms. Albright, is identity theft, and a rather sophisticated one at that. It's further complicated by the fact that the primary suspect is your own daughter. I nodded slowly, a lump forming in my throat. What? Happens now. We have 3 main options, she explained, her voice calm and measured. You can report it to the police, file a civil lawsuit, or attempt to settle the matter privately. She paused, her gaze unwavering. And if you do nothing, you risk foreclosure, accumulating late fees, potential lawsuits from the bank, and ultimately losing your home. I looked out the window at the familiar street I had called home for decades, then back at Diana. Then, I guess, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, a newfound resolve solidifying within me. We do something. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Beatrice, my closest friend from my days working at the local post office. She sounded breathless, her voice laced with an almost frantic excitement. "Margaret, you might want to sit down," she said. "My niece, Penelope, works part-time at Lakeside Catering. Guess whose event she's working this Saturday?" Didn't respond, a cold premonition creeping over me. Victoria's housewarming party. Beatrice continued, her words tumbling out. She booked it under her husband's company name, Summit Events. But it's hers. It's your daughter. Penelope said it's a full setup: cocktails, champagne, a string quartet, 40 guests at the house. Your house, technically. A sharp pang went through me. She hadn't invited me, not even a cursory phone call. I thanked Beatrice, my voice tight, and slowly hung up the receiver. Then I dialed Eleanor. "She's throwing a party in that house," I said, the words heavy with a bitter irony. "This weekend." There was a pause on Eleanor's end. "Do you know the exact time and address?" "I do." "In that case," Eleanor said slowly, a thoughtful cadence in her voice, "we could arrange for the court bailiff to serve her the lawsuit notice there." At the party, my breath hitched. "At the party? Yes, it's perfectly legal," she confirmed. "The bailiff can serve the notice anywhere the defendant can be found. And if I want to be there?" I asked, a rebellious spark igniting within me. Eleanor hesitated. "It will cause a scene, Miss Albright." "I know," she added gently. "Are you sure this isn't about revenge?" I thought for a moment, weighing her words, searching my own heart. "No," I finally said, the answer clear and unwavering. "I want her to see that I'm not the invisible old woman she thinks I am. I want her to see that I won't be silenced." Saturday dawned, a day of clear skies and crisp air. Perfect weather for a lakeside celebration. I stood before my full-length mirror, examining my reflection. I had chosen a dark blue dress, simple yet elegant, with a crisp white collar. Neat. Understated. I carefully curled my silver hair and added a touch of soft rose lipstick. I didn't look like someone defeated, a victim of circumstance. I looked like someone ready to be seen, ready to reclaim what was hers. I took a taxi to a small, charming cafe near Lakeside Circle, where Eleanor waited for me. Beside her stood Mr. Elliot Reed, the court bailiff, a tall, imposing man in a pristine suit, radiating a calm, capable demeanor. He outlined the plan with quiet efficiency. He would enter the party disguised as a catering staff member and serve Victoria the legal notice inside the house. "You can stay outside," Eleanor offered, her gaze gentle, "or you can come in." "Going in," I stated, my voice firm. "She deserves to know I'm not hiding." The 3 of us walked a short distance to 118 Lakeside Circle. From the street, the house was a vision, straight out of a glossy magazine cover. Soft, inviting lights glowed from within, and figures in elegant cocktail attire mingled on the sprawling back patio, their laughter echoing faintly on the gentle breeze. We rang the doorbell. A young woman in a black catering uniform opened the door. "Extra staff?" she asked, a slight frown creasing her brow. "Yes," Eleanor nodded, stepping forward with a convincing smile. "I'm with Lakeside Catering, and this is our quality inspector." "Come in," the young woman said, her skepticism dissipating. The house smelled of new wood and money, a scent both opulent and alien. Soft music drifted through the air, a sophisticated backdrop to the muted conversations I recognized at least two of my former neighbors among the guests. Victoria was at the heart of it all, a glass of champagne clutched in her hand. Her laughter bright and theatrical. When her eyes met mine, her smile froze, a grotesque mask of shock. "Mom," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. And then her gaze shifted, falling upon Mr. Reed, who stood calmly beside me. "Ms. Victoria Caldwell?" Mr. Reed asked, his voice even devoid of inflection. Victoria swallowed, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. "Yes, I'm Victoria Caldwell. I'm here on behalf of the Crestwood District Court," he continued, his words cutting through the soft music and the murmuring conversations. "You're being served with a civil suit for fraud and forgery." The room went silent. Music seemed to fade into nothingness. And for once, my usually verbose daughter had absolutely nothing to say. Victoria clutched the legal documents as if they were alien objects, her knuckles turning bone white as she gripped the pages. Her champagne glass trembled slightly, the golden liquid rippling with every minute shake of her hand. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" Ski finally managed, her voice strained, bordering on hysterical. Michael, her husband, stepped forward, his brow furrowed with confusion. "No joke," I said calmly, my voice steady, betraying none of the internal tremors I felt. "Your wife used my name to take out a mortgage for this house, without my knowledge, without my consent. That's ridiculous," Victoria snapped, her voice tight with panic, her eyes darting nervously around the silent room. "You said you'd help. You gave me permission." "Where's the paperwork then?" I challenged, my gaze unwavering. "Where's the power of attorney you claim I signed? Why did you forge my signature instead?" Victoria's face flushed a deep, angry red. Michael looked at her, his eyebrows raised, a look of profound shock and betrayal etched on his features. It was clear now. He hadn't known the full extent of her deception. "You've embarrassed yourself, Mother," Victoria hissed, lowering her voice. It's a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of control. "And me, in front of everyone." I corrected her, my voice clear and strong, resonating through the silent room. "You embarrassed yourself, just standing up for what's mine." My son, Arthur, appeared from the side of the room, his arms folded across his chest, a look of disapproval on his face. "Come on, Mom," he muttered, his voice laced with annoyance. "You're making a huge deal out of something that could have been solved in private." "Private?" I turned to him, my gaze piercing. You knew, didn't you? You knew, and you said nothing." He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes, offering no reply. Victoria took a step toward me, her voice shaking with raw anger. "Get out right now." "Gladly," I said. "But before I go, I want to see the house you stole in my name. I think I've earned at least that much." Michael looked horrified, his face pale. "Wait, this place is in your mother's name." "Not directly," I replied, the truth echoing in the stunned silence. "It was bought through a shell company set up under Michael's name, Caldwell Holdings. Nice try at hiding the trail." Victoria, the guests, a sea of startled faces, began to slowly back away, murmuring among themselves, their gazes carefully avoiding eye contact. Someone near the kitchen discreetly picked up a coat. Others headed for the front door. There, escape plans already in motion. Victoria was unraveling, fury and desperation warring on her face. But I wasn't there to fight. I was there to be heard, To anyone listening, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the shrinking crowd, let this be a lesson. Never assume someone's too old or too quiet to stand up for themselves. I turned to leave, then paused, my hand on the doorknob. And Victoria, I added, without raising my voice, the words delivered with a quiet, devastating finality. You've taken enough from me. You won't take my dignity, too. And with that, I walked out of the house, leaving behind the shattered illusions, the awkward silence, and the daughter who could no longer hide behind her carefully constructed facade. The lawsuit moved forward with remarkable speed. Eleanor, with her quiet efficiency, filed all the necessary paperwork. We had more than enough compelling evidence. A pristine copy of the loan agreement bearing a clearly forged signature. My medical records unequivocally proving I was at St. Luke's Clinic at the exact hour the documents were supposedly signed. And detailed payment records clearly showing that the mortgage had been serviced through Caldwell Holdings, a company brazenly set up just 2 months before the illicit purchase. Victoria, in a desperate attempt to delay the inevitable, hired a high-priced attorney from the city, a man known for his theatrical courtroom antics. He argued with dramatic flair that I had given verbal consent, portraying the entire ordeal as a simple misunderstanding between family members. However, the judge, a woman in her 70s with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, remained unswayed. She had seen too much, witnessed too many attempts at manipulation to fall for such transparent theatrics. She listened intently, her gaze sharp and discerning. As Eleanor meticulously presented each document, each timeline, each irrefutable piece of proof that pointed not to confusion or familial misunderstanding, but to calculated premeditation. After the second hearing, the judge looked directly at Victoria, her voice ringing with authority. This court does not treat elder financial abuse lightly, Ms. Caldwell. Not when it's committed by strangers. Certainly not when it's committed by family. Especially when it's committed by family. She ruled definitively in my favor. The fraudulent loan was declared null and void, and my name was officially cleared of any and all financial responsibility. Victoria was ordered to pay a substantial $20,000 in moral damages. The bank, eager to avoid further negative publicity and public scrutiny, swiftly offered an additional settlement of $15,000 for its egregious failure to detect the blatant forgery. The grand house on Lakeside Circle, the symbol of Victoria's audacious deceit, was promptly seized by the bank. Victoria and Michael were forced to move into a small, nondescript apartment in the northern part of town. Shortly after, Michael filed for divorce. He vehemently claimed he had been kept completely in the dark about the majority of Victoria's financial decisions and expressed a clear unwillingness to be dragged further into the legal scrutiny that now enveloped her. He also filed for joint custody of Chloe, a move that surprised me. Given his previous passivity, as for my son Arthur, he stopped answering my calls altogether. His wife Lillian messaged me once, a curt, cold dismissal, simply to inform me that I was no longer welcome to visit their children. They're too young to be caught up in family scandals, she wrote. Her words, a final, stinging blow. I was left alone. No birthday invitations arrived, no holiday calls. No cherished photos of my grandchildren adorning my refrigerator. And yet, for the first time in years, I could breathe. There were no more veiled insults disguised as casual remarks at family dinners, no more forced smiles, no nagging sense that I had to shrink myself, to make myself smaller, to be tolerated. I had, in a sense, lost my children. But in that profound loss, I had found something infinitely more valuable, my self-respect. And as painful as that stark truth was, it was undeniably better than the suffocating lie I had lived for far too long. The lie that silence was somehow safer than standing tall, than asserting my own worth. The days that followed were quiet, perhaps too quiet at first. I would still instinctively walk past the hall table, half expecting to see a voicemail light blink. I would glance at my phone, a lingering hope that Chloe's name might pop up. But they didn't call. And slowly, steadily, I stopped waiting. Beatrice, bless her kind heart, became my steadfast daily companion. She would bring over warm scones and fragrant tea, sharing the latest town gossip, her cheerful presence filling the void. One quiet afternoon, she looked at me over the rim of her teacup and asked, "Now that you've fought for your dignity, Margaret, what are you going to do with it?" I laughed, a genuine, unburdened sound. "I don't know, Beatrice. I've lived my whole life for other people. First, Thomas, then the children. I'm not sure what it means to live for myself." "Well," she declared, her eyes twinkling, "it's high time you found out." She was right. After 70 years of putting others first, it was a daunting, yet exhilarating prospect. So, Beatrice, ever the planner, devised a course of action. She signed us both up for a computer literacy course at the community center. Twice a week, we diligently learned how to navigate spreadsheets, compose emails, and even explore the bewildering world of social media. It wasn't easy. My fingers often fumbled on the keyboard, and the terminology felt like a foreign language. But it was ours, a shared adventure, a step toward a new kind of independence. And then, one evening, Beatrice arrived with a glossy travel brochure. "Venice," she said, tapping a vibrant photograph of gondolas gliding gracefully down narrow, ancient canals. "You once told me you and Thomas always wanted to go." "That was a long time ago," I murmured, a wistful smile touching my lips. "Doesn't mean it's too late," she countered, her gaze unwavering. And she was absolutely right. Thanks to the compensation from the court, and, for once, no children siphoning away my hard-earned savings, I booked the tickets. 2 weeks in Italy with my best friend. It wouldn't erase what had happened, the deep scars of betrayal, but it would be a beginning. It's a significant step toward healing. I didn't know if Chloe would ever truly understand what had transpired, or if Arthur and Victoria would ever speak to me again. Maybe one day, maybe not. But I no longer defined my worth by their approval, by their presence in my life. I was still a mother, yes, and that love, though wounded, remained. But more than that, I was a woman who had taken back her voice, her name, her inherent power, and that I knew with a quiet certainty would carry me forward to Venice, to freedom, to the life I was finally choosing for myself. Sometimes, the people who wound us the most deeply are the very ones we once lived for. And standing up to them, fighting for what is right, doesn't signify a failure as a parent. It means you've finally courageously chosen yourself. Margaret Albright's story serves as a powerful reminder that dignity knows no age limit, and justice, while it may not always arrive with triumphant applause, is undeniably worth everything when it finally does.